Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, but more importantly here, head or co-chair of the RNC, Miss Lara Trump. Lara, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
A pleasure. Great to talk to you. So let's talk first from a let's put the you know the guy part aside. Let's put the daughter-in-law part. Let's do RNC co-chair. What are people looking for in a vice president generally?
Well, look, I think that people want someone who they know can carry on the mantle of the America First, Make America Great Again movement, right? And I think whenever you look at someone like Donald Trump, you have to remember that, first of all, he changed politics in general. Since the day that he came down the golden escalator in Trump Tower, June 16th, 2015, politics have never been the same. People are engaged, they're paying attention, and he really has changed our party. Look at the way he's been able to expand this party and bring in people like blue collar workers. Right now, you see support going up for Donald Trump in spaces like with the African American community, with Hispanic voters, with young voters. So when you look at this party, it's a party that has ultimately changed because of him. And so I think whenever you're considering someone to be your vice president, obviously that's a person who has to be ready day one to serve as president should anything, God forbid, happen to the president. But you also want someone who you can look towards the future with. And I think a lot of times you tap a VP in the future to potentially run as president. And certainly the momentum we have in this party, we want to see continue, not just here in 2024 and for the 4 years that Donald Trump will be president, which I truly believe we will see happen, but for years and years after that. So I think it is the number one thing that people want to see, someone who has his policies, who has a lot of common sense ways of looking at things like he does, and who really can carry that on into the future.
I want to get on that point, but you mentioned how the party has changed so much. Just this morning, I was talking to one of the Republicans running for Senate Christine, running for Senate in New Jersey. And we're just talking about the polls in New Jersey and how Trump lost New Jersey by 16, I think, and Cory Booker back in 2021 by 17, that Senate race there. And the latest poll, which was like 2 months ago, had Trump only down by 6. Like are we really talking about potential Trump victories in New York and New Jersey?
We are talking about expanding the map, Mike. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You know, you probably just heard about a week ago, we are now talking about adding to our battleground states Minnesota and Virginia. I'll tell you, we're also looking at states like New Hampshire. We had a poll earlier this week where you see a dead heat between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the Granite State. That's amazing. You know, that's a state a Republican hasn't won in like 6 election cycles. That it speaks volumes. So yes, we are seriously looking at a changed map. Think back to 2016. Think about the state of Michigan. No one was even looking out for Michigan in 2016, and in came Donald Trump. And I think you have a situation right now across the country where people are quite frankly fed up, where people who maybe fell for the trap of, oh, jazz hands, here's the old nice man, Joe Biden, dignity back to the White House, Scranton Joe, all that nonsense. They don't care about that anymore because they know they've been fooled and they know they can't pay their bills. They know they can't go to the grocery store and actually buy what they need for their families. They know they can't fill up their gas tank. They know that we have a fully open southern border and it feels like we're on the verge of World War III. They know who had that in the complete opposite direction, and it was Donald Trump. So when you go across this country, I was in California all last weekend. I got to tell you something. People are sick and tired of it. They are ready to come out and vote for Donald Trump. And these are voters he did not have in 2020. So yes, I think you are going to see a changed, much redder map come November 5th, 2024.
Scranton Joe. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, back to VP. So tell me about your father-in-law's discernment when it comes to knowing the difference between someone who is career hopping, right, who's always wanted that VP spot their whole life, and this might be their chance, versus the someone who truly understands that this is a movement and they want to be, a part of it, for the movement's sake and not for their own. How do you know the difference?
Well, Donald Trump is the ultimate negotiator. And to be a good negotiator, you have to be able to read people. And he's really been able to do that his entire life. I mean, if you look at his company, if you look at the Trump organization, some of the top executives in the Trump organization started out as doormen, as drivers, as security guards, but he could read them so well. And he saw something in them that maybe they didn't even see in themselves. And because of that, he gave them the opportunity to rise through the ranks of the company and ultimately end up where they are today. And I really think it speaks to his discernment, as you're asking, in terms of people who he can peg for certain positions and he knows will do those positions well. I think it's no different when it comes to choosing a vice president. Look, there's a lot you can say about Mike Pence in terms of the end of his tenure as vice president. But when you look at the way he served in that position for the 4 years that they were in office together, he was really a great vice president. And he was actually the great counterbalance that I think was needed for that moment to Donald Trump and to his big personality, which obviously sometimes rubs people the wrong way. He had the counterbalance of Mike Pence. I think we're in a different space right now. And I think that he's looking for different qualities in a VP at this very moment. But I think it's that ability to read people that I really do believe he's always had. And I don't think you can create or you can teach someone. I think it's innate. I think he was born with it, that I think will ultimately lead him to choose who he will choose for his running mate. And I think it will be the best person for the job.
Yeah, so listen, you've mentioned many ways, and we all know that Trump has totally changed the game in every way. So the old school thinking was, we want to win the minority vote, so we got to have a black vice president. Or we want to win the women vote, we need a woman president. Is that still a thing? Is that somewhat of a factor? Does the suburban housewife going to feel way better if there's like a nice guy who's vice president as opposed to mean old Trump? Is that into his thinking at all or no?
Yeah, identity politics does not play into it. I think that people view that as pandering. I think it's insulting. I think it's the exact opposite of what you would want to do to choose someone to run for a position like this. Certainly the Democrats have cornered the market on identity politics. Joe Biden was happy to tell us the only reason he chose his vice president, Kamala Harris, not based on the fact that she could be great in that position and execute it well and she was the best person for that job. No, based on how she looked. And I think it's insulting as a woman that that is our first female vice president and that she was chosen only because she's a woman and only because she's a minority, per Joe Biden's own words. No, I don't think it factors in at all. I think what people have seen with Donald Trump is he is a straight shooter. He will tell you like it is, and he will choose someone who, again, he knows can execute that position. He knows day one could be ready to serve as president and can carry on the message, the policies, and the great future vision for America that he has always had. And so that is the most important thing. When you're talking about bringing in other groups, look at the poll numbers right now. Donald Trump is blowing it out of the water. No Republican in history has polled so high with Black voters, with Hispanic voters, with young voters. He's doing it himself right now. And I don't know how much the vice presidential pick will ultimately sway that. He does it all on his own.
Yeah, that's part of it too. And I hate to do this at the beginning of our special, but how much is his vice president? This might be the most inconsequential vice presidential pick in history too, because he's so who he is.
Yeah, well, it ultimately matters. And I think people pay attention to it. And he's taking it very seriously. Hence the reason he hasn't chosen someone yet. I think he still has a little more vetting to do. And he wants to spend a little more time with the people who he's considering, which is why I think he said, you probably won't know who I'm choosing until the Republican National Committee convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, come mid-July. So everybody's got to wait. But I can assure you he's taking it very seriously. And he knows the importance of it nonetheless.
You guys are running that convention, right? That you put that on. What do we have to look forward to that convention? What's exciting? What's different, perhaps, about Milwaukee?
Well, this is the first convention that has actually happened in 8 years. Because if you think back, in 2020, we didn't have the traditional conventions because of COVID. And so this is we're blowing it out of the water. We're the first ones, the Republican Party, to put ours on. It is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And look, I think it's about contrasting two presidents and two presidencies. And we do have that amazing opportunity right now, having had Donald Trump for 4 years and now having had Joe Biden for 3.5 years. you can very clearly contrast the way that they operated as president, the results for this country, the way people in this country feel, the way their day-to-day lives operated. And that is really our job ultimately at this convention, to contrast these two men and then talk about the future for America. How do you give the country back to we the people? How do we roll back all these crazy regulations? How do we pull back the inflation that has been killing people in this country? How do we close down the border, gain back our energy independence, and regain our footing on the world stage? Those are all things that are going to be very important to talk directly to the American people about during this convention. And we're really excited. We get to go first. We get to set the tone. So get ready. Mid-July, we're going to see you there.
I should end here. We only got a minute, and this is an unfair question for only a minute, but hopefully I can ask you this when we talk on the radio next time. But we talked to Rudy Giuliani the other day, and I said, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if there's ever been someone in history that was so beloved and then so just like disgraced. Like we hate this person. As maybe like that delta is maybe Rudy. We're going to talk to Ben Carson at the end of this. Like, he's someone too, like Ben Carson, like, oh, most brilliant neuroscience ever, and then like total wingnut because he's a Republican. How do you, as a member of the Trump family, and Donald, like, does he care at all about how he was the most beloved king of New York and now, arrested in New York? How does he interpret that?
You know, he knew getting into this. He actually sat down with our family before he announced he was running for president the first time in 2015. And he said, if we do this the right way, if I do the things that are necessary to save this country, they're going to come after us. And it's not just going to be me, it's going to be all of us. He knew what he was in for, and yet he still decided to take this on. He knew if he ran again, and he announced it obviously almost a year and a half ago now, that they were going to come after him, that they were going to try and destroy him in every way possible. But I think he also knew that he was the only person who really had the ability to do what was necessary for this country. No one can argue that there would be another person still standing if they were facing all that he has. And so I think he's known forever that this is really his purpose in the world. This is why he was put on this earth. And I do believe he was made for such a time as this. And no, he doesn't care. He will continue to fight. It doesn't matter what they do. He knows the importance of this election, of ensuring that we get our country back. We always hear freedom is only one generation away from extinction. It feels very real right now, and he understands that. So they can try it all. They'll never stop him. He'll never back down, and he doesn't care what anybody has to say.
Lara Trump, co-chair RNC. Where can people go to donate and support the Republican Party?
Yeah, DonaldJTrump.com, GOP.com if you would like to donate, help us in this charge. And if you want to be part of our election integrity team, ProtectTheVote.com. We want to have 100,000 people on our election integrity team spread out across the country by Election Day. So come join us.
Yes, great to talk to you, Lara. Appreciate you.